caught in a crossfire. But what the North did was a brilliant counter. This group from Pennsylvania took their flag and simply moved the flag away from the men. The flag was always in the center of the regiment. So maybe 30 Southern cannon had to fire at the flag in an empty field for a couple of hours. Really. So the poor flag was still doing it. He gave his life to save his friend. All kinds of powerful stories, everything. And a whole little book just about that incident called The Color Episode, 149 Pennsylvania. Now see, down to our left, they had another line of northern men coming in, Howard's 11th Corps. Like I mentioned, Howard, one arm. But his men were down over there. And the one place where the North does not have the good ground. And the last clearing out here is where they have Barlow's Knoll. The northern line simply ends there. And all of a sudden, the new Southern force under Jubal Early came around behind them. And all of a sudden, down there, the North are getting shot at from the front, the side, and the back, all at the same time. But up here, a little different story at first. Robert rose to the south, launched an infantry across the field on the right. They had no scouts out in front, no skirmishing. Did not see it. The North did right here where we are, behind this little farmer's wall. The south marching right across in front of them. The North sprang up and blasted about this field to our right. They said 500 men. North Carolina was shot down out there on the right in a row. Boom! They all fell down together. Devastating. The North rushed out, captured 300 or 400 more of those men. The South almost did it again, running across the same field with the same boom. Some of the survivors of the Iverson Brigade warned them to go around the wall. Which reinforcing group came around the wall fighting, began to shoot down the north side, and to chase them all the way through the town. So can you see, if you're an old soldier coming back 75 years later, peace line dedication, your perception is colored by where you're standing. You see that? So if you're in this first Southern wave on the right, you got slaughtered. You lost. The second wave got around them and chased them back 2 miles and captured more men than you had. And your minimum, lost your minimum, there's a very instance. And so you would have lost one. So some of these men did not realize they lost the battle. They read about the history books years later. Read about, they lost. They won their part. Makes a difference where you were is what you saw. I don't know if you ever heard of Jubal Early. He is Lee's bad old man. The only man who cut their cuss in front of Robert E. Lee. No one else would do that but old Jubal. He didn't care. So the story was that early in the war, he was under Stonewall Jackson's command. And Jackson wrote a note to Early one time saying, well, riding in the rear of your command the other day, I saw a lot of stragglers, men not with their unit. Why is that? Signed, T.J. Jackson. So Early wrote right back, said, if you saw a lot of stragglers in the rear of my command, it's because you're in the rear of my command. Signed, Jubilee Early. So he's a bear. Even his own people didn't like him. Someone who served with Early for 4 years of war said Early was unloving, unlovely, and unloved. Pretty scathing indictment. He's a fighter, though. That's why Lee kept him on. But he's finally defeated 3 times in the Shenandoah Valley in 1864. Lee had to finally relieve him of command. He led him down in such a nice way that Early never took offense at Lee for that. And Lee said, you know, that no man could command without the respect of your men. You know, my respect for you is undimmed. Your abilities. The men don't trust you. On that basis, they got to relieve you. So if anybody said anything bad about Robert E. Lee after the war, they would hear from Jubal Early. So Southern General Longstreet and Early had a bitter feud that lasted 40 years in the press. And unfortunately, Longstreet was a career soldier, where Early was a lawyer. And so the way Early framed the debate is not you're right or I'm right, it's you're right or Lee's right. Anything Longstreet wrote or said was against Lee, not against Early. So Longstreet got the worst end of the arguments. But he'd fight you. He wouldn't stop fighting. And they've had this bitter feud going on for 40 years. Now we're going to make a left turn up here, but on your right they have this flag bearer from the north. His name is Ben Crippen. The North is being forced back from ridge to ridge on day one. He was seen holding his flag in one hand, shaking his fist in defiance with the other hand. He kept doing that, he was shot dead. The Southern General E.P. Hill saw him fall and regretted so his death. Both sides of our brave. I see if Stonewall Jackson lived, he says, he would have said, shoot the brave ones. No, the brave ones are dead. So it's kind of the last age of chivalry, so the first modern one at the same time. You admire the guy riding around on the White Horse on the other side of shooting. Actually, that's the very guy who needs to shoot. So Jackson himself is dead by now, shot accidentally, found on the fullness of the dark, first we found without Stonewall Jackson. Now see, as the north is falling back, it's always to a better and better spot. You see that? The guys here in the morning from north throwing together barricades and fence rails where we are now at the seminary. North, they fell back, they always fall back to a better spot. And imagine a line of 20 cannons here. Look out the south and right, and charging uphill across a lot of open ground together. And the south getting really massive. There's one company from South Carolina attacking the seminary, lost 34 out of 39 men in the first blast. The line was staggered, and their leader, Abner Parent on horseback, got out in front and led the charge and broke the line. This guy said to stand on open ground was impossible. Retreat was unthinkable. Go forward was ordered. He knew Ford broke the line. Now here on the left, here's the main seminary building back then. Many of you saw the movie Gettysburg. They showed Buford up in the tower, and they let him use the actual building in some of the scenes in the movie. But for the wide shots, he used to fake close-ups, he used a real building. Now, this building here on your left we're passing was here then, called the Schmucker House. The Reverend Samuel Schmucker, who lived here, is the president of the seminary. He's a noted abolitionist. So he fled when the battle started. He came back afterwards to find the South had gotten into his home, and they trashed it. That's against Lee's orders to respect private property. Apparently they learned he's an abolitionist and resented that. He tore up his place. So he came back, all of his books are scattered around the grounds here. His papers are all scattered everywhere and stomped on, all but one. Which book remained? The Bible, yes. He opened up the Bible and found this Southern man had written a note in there saying he had found this on the floor. And he wrote, I want you to know I put it back. He signed his name. So years ago we went looking for that Bible and we found it. It was at the Lutheran Seminary Library in a vault. He signed his name J.G. Beard. One of our many trips to the archives, we looked him up. It was Judson G. Beard from Georgia, writing this here after day one. And so we believe that was him, and he survived the war. So see, it doesn't change the story. It's just interesting to see the rest of the story. But always interesting little stories. And every now and then we'll find a photograph of him. Now, you know, in our museum, they have a great picture of the view of the town of Gettysburg. Looking left, and you can see what it looked like back then, very soon after the battle. And so that's exactly Lee with him. He arrives on the seminary ridge, just in time to see the northern line collapsing here, and everything running back through the town to Cemetery Hill. So just a second off to your left, I think you'll see a light blue water tower right on Cemetery Hill. Can you see it over there? That's what the north is running back to. Between here and there, a lot of open ground, crisscrossed by fences. So what Lee is going to see is victory. So Lee's going to send word off to our left to Richard S. Ewell. He's driving down from the north, and he tells Ewell, keep going, and take the hills over there. But then he added that these two fatal words. Anybody know those words? Goes. What was it? If practicable. Yeah, an old word that we don't use anymore. If practicable. And so Ewell hesitated and stopped in town. That was the end of day one. So understand they will always argue that question. Could the South really have done it? You got them outnumbered 2-1. You're driving through town, shooting them back. It looks like a cinch. Keep going. But see, once you hit the town, your battle line disintegrates. Your men are chasing off after prisoners, hiding in the basements and closets. You're pulling out thousands of prisoners. You're inundated by your success. So it was not practical to Ewell to keep going. But I always didn't like Ewell because he admitted mistakes. He said later on it took a dozen blunders to lose Gettysburg, and I made most of them. So an honest man. Now, by the way, look at this line of cannons are passing. This is impressive and rare. See this many guns in a row. When the War Department came along to study the battle in the 1890s, there were no Southern miners to look at. So they said, let's get all these old cannons out of storage. We'll bring them back here to Gettysburg. This one stretch and put them back gun for gun. The North had 6-gun batteries, the South had 4-gun batteries. Then they put them all back. So remember this later on when we talk about the Great Cannonade. They said you could hit us in Pittsburgh, 180 miles away. Now under the trees to our left we have the North Carolina Memorial. That was done by an artist named Gutzon Borglum. Anybody recognize that name? He did Mount Rushmore, President's Faces. But they were saying that's the most sculptural monument we have at the park. I should tell you, I majored in art, not history. I always liked both. But in art school, they tell you there's 4 plastic elements instead of a great work of art. That one is all 4. The first plastic element is repetition. There's a repetition. These soldiers going across this field. They're all different poses. That's a variation. Second plastic element. They're all different poses. Emphasis is the third plastic element. And the fourth one is I'll think of it here in a minute. But the third one, see, the way this artist got emphasis on the faces is he blurred everything else. The motion, fourth plastic is motion. So that thing, a lot of those guys go across that field, they straight motion and not come back. Biggest charge. That's the emotional field. Now here's Robert E. Lee now on top of the Virginia Memorial. One of our guides was telling me a story about Lee I did not know here, of this monument here. The artist that did the statue of Lee was Frederick W. Sievers. 2 years after he did this nice statue of Lee, Frederick W. Sievers did a statue of Stonewall Jackson down in Richmond. They're identical. He just changed the head. He thought, I'm not going to make a hole of the horse. Horses are hard. Let's just make a second cast of this, cut Lee's head up, put Jackson on his place, there you go. That's what he did. But somebody pointed out, you know, Lee's horse, very famous horse, Traveler. Jackson's horse, famous horse, but it's Little Sorrow, a small, nondescript horse. But then him riding Lee's horse down, Traveler, because that's the one they took down. Now, General Lee must have been disappointed. They started the battle in the first place, and they failed to follow up on it while they were winning. But Lee's a realist. They just decided, let's figure out what to do now. Now, General Meade is on the other side. We'll see him up close later. But we're seeing, they said Lee was considered the handsomest man of his day. They said General Meade looked like a bald-headed, goggle-eyed, snapping Turk. Did not look how much of a soldier compared with Lee. But he's a good one. Lee knew that. So Lee learned from the spy Harrison, North and Swiss commanders, put in Meade. A lot of Lee's staff would congratulate Lee and his easy opponent. Lee corrected right away. He said, General Meade, make no mistake. If I make one, then he quickly capitalize on it. But not to beat himself, the earlier general was done, he'd have to beat him. So Lee knew all these guys. You know, that they all went to West Point, not together, but Lee's older than most of them. Lee's 56, Meade's 48. They're both engineers and would pass each other a lot. The old army, the smaller army. And so Lee would try stuff against people like McClellan, Burnside, and Hooker. He never tried against somebody like Meade or Grant. He knew all these guys. They knew him. Now imagine if you're General Meade. You arrive off to your left, it's after midnight and you're losing. Your best man, Reynolds, is dead. The guy you trusted the most is dead. 2 of your Army Corps have been destroyed. The rest of North's Army is still scattered in front of us to our south. Your biggest northern group, 35 miles away. Robert E. Lee, 1 mile. Unknown strength here on Seminary Ridge. So you can see where a lesser man, Meade, would have easily said, let's retreat. He did not. So he deserves a lot of credit. He doesn't get it. So, in the movie Gettysburg, he got to say 3 lines of a 4-hour movement. He comes in at the end of the day and the first night and says, this good ground twice. And he says it's pretty dark out. He That's all I got to say. So he deserves more than that. But we'll see, he's like a good coach. He's putting in the right people, the right time to win. They're going to win because of what he's doing. He's going to stay on the defense. That turned out to be the winning strategy. Now we're done with day one, everybody, okay? Moving on to day two. Is everybody doing okay? It's all making sense, okay? So they blundered into each other, and the South had more men closer, so they drove the North back, and they stopped, perhaps on the verge of victory. Okay? Now, I don't know if you know about the Corps badges. Corps badges. In the North, they have 7 Army groups called Army Corps, C-O-R-P-S. Each one's at least 10,000 men. You could not recognize your men by their faces. You couldn't do it. Those faces are always changing. People get shot and sick and replace them all the time with other men. So in the North, they invented this badge they wear on their hats. When you get back to the northern line, you'll see it on the monuments. So Reynolds men have a round shirt. Howard's men north of town is a crescent moon. Other guys will see have a shamrock, diamond, or star, Maltese cross. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a way to identify your men. But understand, Lee can look at the prisoners they've been taken. On the first day, only 2 Corps badges showing up. That meant there only 2 Corps there. But Lee know the other 5 can't be far behind. So Lee's instinct was, we need to attack. You know, we need to hit them fast, hit them hard, hit them on the end of the line before they get too strong for them. So what he wants to do is Civil War 101, hit him on the ends of the line. So he wants Longstreet, his best man, to attack the round tops. Maybe you can see off to our left front. You get a better look at it later. If you know the story, Longstreet is against attacking. Longstreet remembers Fredericksburg. He's the one that sat on a nice big hill behind a stone wall, sunken road, mowed down everybody that came at him. Longstreet hardly lost any of his own men. So Longstreet said, Lee, those hills off to your left are too strong. Let's not try this thing. Let's go around him, head on down to Washington. We'll get down there, we'll dig in, and make them attack us. Lee says, no, we're not going to do that. So the move to Gettysburg sounded like a wonderful idea because they did not try it, so it did not fail. You know why Lee says no to it? First of all, I'm the Southern Cavalry. Now Jeff Stewart's off the raid. You have no idea where the Northern Army is located. Somewhere out there, 5 other Army Corps, and we don't know where they are. And you have a huge wagon that captures supplies. How can you protect the wagon? You don't know the enemy. And worse than anything else, they don't have to attack them. You're in the North District. Wherever you stop down towards Washington, all they got to do is surround you. They can starve you out in no time. So Lee is saying, no, Longstreet, you can't do that. We're going to whip them. They're going to whip us right here. Longstreet was sulking in the rear of the column. They got way off track. So this one modern military man was giving us a nice talk about this one time in this discussion between Lee and Longstreet. And they said, where was Lee on the second day? If Longstreet got the main attack, attacking the round tops on your left, you know he doesn't know what to do it for you. Why wasn't Lee down there to supervise in person? We all said, yeah, I guess it's Lee's fault. He should have been down there. This instructor said, wait a minute, Longstreet's your best man. With the death of Stonewall Jackson and divided according to 2 parts. Part went to AP Hill was too aggressive. He started the battle. Lee told him not to start. Hill turned out to be too timid to follow up on it. So Lee is way around on the other side of a southern line that's 6.5 miles long with Ewell, waiting to hear Longstreet's attack again. Nothing's happening. So as Lee himself will finally get on his horse, ride all the way down to see what the holdup is. Imagine Lee asking everybody seen along the route, who's passed, have you seen Longstreet? So this young officer came up to Lee finally and said, General Lee, I see some men moving out here at the south end of the battlefield. Lee said to him, are they ours or theirs? The man said, I don't know. Lee said, are they coming towards us or going away from us? He said, I can't tell. Lee said, what size force is it? He said, I don't know. Lee got mad. He said, young man, if I was a young officer, I would go find out. You see, one perfectly good Captain you see men moving on a battlefield. That doesn't help me at all, does it? So you can see Lee's level of frustration is very, very high. And all the time they wasted, they're getting stronger and stronger. Now, we did promise you a restroom back instead of coming up here. This one used to have the South End Guide Station. And some of our older guides like to work on these satellite areas of the steam company. They come with a big motor home, they got 5 dogs and 3 kids, it's a lot later, so they run their kitchen guide. One of the things they used to do, I'm told, they take dollar bills and soak them in oil. So they needed change, it's some weird water. So I'll just keep that same dollar bill from here. And a rain park. So someone got to think that that'd be pressure on somebody in the valley what he did. Now, you're smart, you let him tell you that before you tell him the rest. Now, Molly, before you get out, over here is the Eisenhower farm. Eisenhower not from here, but he'd been here in World War I, training in tank corps. Now when he retired, this farm on your left came open, so he bought it. So that's the main farm over this way. We had wealthy friends that bought land on either side, so they had Farm 1, Farm 2, and Farm 3. And lucky for us, all that land was turned over to the park when Eisenhower died. So otherwise you might have a shopping mall or a Disney World right beside the Confederate line. But see now here, the women's restroom is on the right, men's on the left. When you get out, watch out with this little yellow curve, it's a half step. People tend to trip on that. Then you come back and pick up where that car.